Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Hello, I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. I'm here with Davina, and this is our second leash walking video to show what we just talked about with the post. Hi, sweet girl. Showing it a little bit in action, and this is also very exciting because I'm going to give you your first pattern to walk. Walking the pattern is super important because then I know that you're going where you want to go instead of accidentally, and it's probably the biggest accidental mistake people make, is you accidentally follow your dog. So I've set up some really rudimentary, if you see the posts here, and then I have two things on the ground over here to give guidelines. I know where I'm trying to walk, but I want you to know where I'm trying to walk. And as you set something up at home, I like circles. This is a square, and a square is fine too. We don't want straight lines. So as you set something up at home, you can use, some people might like to use cones as guidelines. You could use patio furniture. If you have a couple of small even rocks, like we're trying to give you a bowl, I'm looking at a silver dog bowl. You could use like some little dog dishes. You're trying to give yourself a visual, which is what these are. These are my jump things I have out for jumps. And I also have a set of weave poles that go into the ground, and I could have used 4 nice clean things that go into the ground, but I deliberately used some variety so you can see that it doesn't have to be, we're not looking for something perfect. So you're looking to give yourself a guideline for your pattern, because the number one mistake that I see people make, and I'm not going to be there other than in your ear to be guiding you through with some vocal guidance, because I can't see you. Davina's shedding, she needs some brushing. Because I can't see you, I need to make sure that you're staying on your pattern. Because anyways, to complete the thought, the number one mistake I see people make is they start trying to walk a pattern, and as the dog's walking somewhere, they just kind of keep following the dog. So I might even be out of the picture now. So I'm going to walk with Davina. Sorry about the wind. I'm trying to do this when it's not super windy. But unfortunately, spring in North Carolina, it's always windy. So I'm just walking this pattern, and what's important for me is that my hips and my shoulders are going where I want to be going. You see, she's kind of behind me. And sometimes when a dog gets behind people, they start doing this and trying to draw the dog to them and walking kind of crab walk or sideways. I don't want you to be concerned if the dog's behind you. That's what the leash is for. So I just want you to walk with your shoulders and your hips facing the direction you want to go. So she's lagging behind me, but I'm not concerned about it. I'm not looking to see where she is because I have the leash on. And even though she was behind me, I never felt my leash go tight. Good girl. Yes, it's very nice. I never felt the leash go tight. If you are walking like I'm recommending with your shoulders and your hips facing the direction you want to go, and the leash does go tight, that's when you would give, just like we practiced on the post, that little check release, a tap tap. We're not pulling the dog and trying to drag the dog. So you're trying to apply a pressure and release it, pressure, release it, and you might have to do it 3 to 5 times, and the dog's like, oh, and then they start walking with you. As you get better at it, as you get better with it, you'll be able to do the check release while you're still walking, and have the dog come with you without you having to stop to do those check releases. So one of the things I say in the audio portion of things is to like keep walking, because I want you to stop when you want to stop, not be stopping because the dog is sniffing something, and not be stopping because the dog is pulling you the wrong direction. So when I say keep walking, even if it's just with little steps, again, she doesn't pull, so I know this is hard to see. You'll see some of this in the actual, what I call that heavy leash pulling video that I intend to do. But just even if you're moving your feet just a little bit while you're doing the check releases, it keeps your hips and your shoulders the right direction. And the dog, like she comes with me. Oh, good. She's a little distracted there. The leash finally went tight. So she comes with me because I'm moving, and she knows I'm turning because I'm turning my hips and my shoulders. I'm going to Oh, good. She's a little distracted there too. Good girl. So I'm going to now turn a different direction. I'm going to do a little circle here. But again, because I turn, she's turning with me. So I'm going to come back and try this again. If I didn't commit myself to turning because she's behind me and I'm doing this, now see how she stopped? Because if I think I'm going to make my turn like this, she doesn't really know where we're going. You know, she's just going to stop in front of me to say hi. So as you're making turns, the dog should be following. Now I'm going to cut across. She's following my hips and shoulders is what she's doing. I'm turning into her. She turns with me because I'm walking with intention. And we have to teach our dog what our space means. So when you initially turn into your dog, sometimes you might have to actually kind of step into them to make them move to you. But see how she does that? She does that quite well. So much easier to picture some of what I'm talking about with when I'm going to have to rope somebody into letting me walk their heavy leash puller for that video. So you can see what I'm talking about with turning into the dog and when they stop to sniff something and how to make them keep walking. But this at least shows you that the pattern that you need. And then because of the work we did on the post with that whole check release system, you can obviously see that her leash is loose. It did go tight once, so you can even rewind to see that part of the video. She was looking, I think, at the horse, and I started walking and she didn't notice. So what I'm going to show you here, if I can, so I'm stepping away a little bit, and I'm going to put a little bit of tension on the leash, and she came immediately. The leash wasn't even all the way tight, and she stepped over. This is what a finished product looks like. What does this mean? It means that my dog understands what leash pressure means. And that's all we're trying to teach them with the leash walking. What does it mean? What does the leash pressure mean? I'd pull my hand, there was a tiny bit of tension, she came forward immediately. They learn how to give to the pressure. So that's the name of the game. And this goes again to the referencing the previous video with the post. I'm just using 2 fingers as I did this example. And like I said, my slack was barely even all the way out of the leash and she immediately came forward. So you have a dog that's very responsive and sensitive. And in this environment, I call this the neutral leash walking. Some of you might say, my dog doesn't pull in a neutral environment. You know, they only pull if they see other dogs. They only pull if they're excited to say hi to my neighbor, or they pull as I go to the woods where they know they're going to get to run off leash or something. And they're excited to get there, so they start pulling. This neutral walking is important because, again, I'm going to do it with her. If I pick up and she moves immediately, this is responsiveness. So you can, depending on, we all have varying degrees of dogs that we're dealing with for their level of pulling, sometimes their situation of pulling. We always do the neutral leash walking. And what you're checking for is to make sure you're walking your pattern and that you're walking it on a loose leash. So if the dog is holding, this hand's Davina now. If there's just that little bit of tension, the dog's not pulling super hard, there's just a little bit of tension, I can still check release that, right? This is loose leash. This is not. So if your whole walk is that the dog is just a little bit of tension the whole time, check release so that it's loose. And in the check, which this one I couldn't show you, there again, she responded to the leash. The check is to get the dog to move towards your circle. So geometry that we never thought we'd use, right? Geometry and dog training. This is a circle radius. You want to do a little lunge? Oh, good job. Do a little lunge. So she's walking around and she is inside of the radius, so the leash is loose. If she were to try to pull to the outside of the radius, and I take this arm, the leash goes tight, right? So your dog, that's why I want people on the handle at first, because it gives a very distinct, if the dog's not on the handle, what people can accidentally do is start with this much leash walking. This much leash length. So I'm gonna get going here, and we have this much leash length. This doesn't work because she's staying too close to me, but they can accidentally then all of a sudden be walking, and especially someone that maybe likes to take a leash, which we don't do because of my post video, I know we don't, wrap the leash around your hand. Well, now the dog only has this much leash length. And if it's a pulling contest, and then as the person pulls, they wrap it again, and they pull again and they wrap it again, Davina's like, what are you doing? Then before you know it, the dog has only got 6 inches of leash length because you're pulling and wrapping and pulling and wrapping. So I definitely don't want anyone wrapping the leash around their hand, but I also don't want people pulling the dog in closer, because it's just a habit. Again, the habits I see with people, when the dog is pulling, the person pulls and then holds, and then maybe pulls again and holds, and we're trying to learn the release. So it's the pressure release. Good girl. So we're gonna walk again, see how she does. We're gonna walk down center line. Very nice job. I want to step into you now. Good girl. I'm gonna step into you again. Good girl. Yeah. Good girl. Now I'm gonna stop walking, and she stops walking. She also was very animated with me there. When you stop walking, that's the other test, is to make sure the dog stops walking. If she were to stop, go be distracted, go look at something good. She stops out there, the leash is still loose, so that's fine. If she were to stop and to park a little bit of pressure into her stop, where again, this hand's gonna be her for a minute, there's that little bit of tension, then I'm gonna check and release. I'm gonna check to make the dog come towards me just that little bit. And she's coming all the way, but check to make them come towards you just that little bit so the leash is actually loose. That's again why the post work is so important, because it's that tension, no tension. And when you're stopped, we want 0 tension. So now let's imagine, and again, you'll be able to see this much better in actuality with a heavy leash pulling video. But let's imagine you give a little check release, and the dog puts themselves out at the end of the leash again, and there's tension. You check release, and the dog's like, I'm going to do it again then. And so every time you're doing the check release, you get what you want, which is that little bit of slack in the leash, and the dog is walking out to take that slack out of the leash again. This is great training. That's what that is. It's a great training opportunity, because if you're patient and you do that a bunch of times, Davina's not patient. She's starting to whine. She's like, what are we doing out here? If you're patient and you keep doing the check release, eventually after 5 times, 7 times, you're not moving. You're just check release. And the dog's like, I'm going to go back and pull again. Check release. You're standing still, and the dog's just putting that tension. You pull them towards you, just that little pop release. And as the dog works through that process, maybe 5, 7 times, whatever it is, then you'll watch them stand there on the loose leash. So sometimes in our head, we think, well, I don't want my dog to be wrong. I don't want my dog to be wrong. You guys, that's the only way your dog's going to learn. The only way they're going to learn how to have no tension on the leash is to have had tension on the leash. So again, going back to those of you that maybe say, oh, my dog only pulls in certain situations, all the more reason to do this exercise to see if you can find just a place here and there, which happened with Davina. Just here and there, the leash was tight, and I could see she gave the immediate response of, okay, I'm coming with you. And again, if your dog doesn't give that response, so the leash goes tight and they're like, oh, I'm just going to pull harder the direction I want to go. You stop your feet. You can brace both hands if you need to. Give a hefty little pop release to get your dog under control and not going the direction they want to go. And then the important part is you turn and start walking. And so she came off of a loose leash, but why? Because I turned my body and I started to walk. So to add one more level of complexity, and don't be afraid, this is why you don't train off of this video. This is just information, so don't panic. This is why I have the audios, because I'm going to talk you through all of this when you have your dog and you're trying to walk the pattern and you're trying to do all the things. But when I turn and I start walking, I don't say anything to her. So I'm talking to you, but I don't tell her the COME command. I don't say her name. And I certainly don't say, you know, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. She's like, what? So that means something to her. She's like, that's a command. So the leash walking is manners. And she should follow me simply because, oh, there, the leash went tight. Good. So she should follow me just because she's paying attention, and she should follow me. She has to follow me because she's on a leash. So I don't have to talk to her because she has no choice. And we want to keep the commands like their name and the COME command. We want to keep that separate. And here's why. Let's see if she'll go in front of me a little bit. Come, good girl. So that's why I'm not saying that word out loud, because it actually means something to her. I think I could be down with you and show them, maybe talk about the rest, and you could trot around a little bit off leash. The pattern, and this again is much easier to see off of the heavy leash puller, but I'm just walking a square in general. But let me show you what I'm trying to avoid. Let's get you going this direction. So let's say, let's see if she'll do it. I might not be able to show you. If she's walking behind me and I start walking slower because she's behind me, then that's not what we want. We want you to choose your pace. So if anything, I'm just going to go ahead and walk a little faster to show you. So here, see how I got off my pattern? Because I just followed my dog. So that's why I have this up, so that I don't accidentally think so much on keeping the leash loose that when she wanted to go straight, that you end up just following your dog somewhere. So that's why you have something set up, a visual for you, set up so that you say, this is the pattern I'm walking, and I'm sticking with it. I'm turning, I'm going to turn here, right here, not over here, because this is where it's like, what are we doing? Make up your mind. And so the dog isn't dictating where your feet are going. The dog doesn't dictate the pace. They're not dictating when you stop. They're not dictating when you turn. They're not dictating if you turn, right? So all of this, that's why we have the pattern. And the visual, I think, just makes it easier for you, especially as you try to get used to all the things. All right, so that ends this video. And again, don't be overwhelmed. We break it down, and you'll hear more. And if you're having trouble seeing, visualizing some of it, it'll be laid out in that heavy leash pulling video. All right, happy training. What you doing? Good girl.